You are listening to Fast Track Podcast, the place to be to fast track your personal finance or fast track your business, or both, through a series of conversations with those who have learned it, done it, and made it. In this Millionaire series, I interview people who have achieved 1 million net worth. I ask them about their money habits, money philosophy, and how they achieve net worth growth so that you can implement the proven method and improve your personal finance. Today's guest is Peter Saddington, who achieved 1 million net worth at the age of 26. He's also a guest on episode 6, where we talk about his entrepreneurial journey. In this episode, he shared with us how he achieved 1 million net worth at the age of 26, his money philosophy, and investment philosophy. Welcome to Fast Track Podcast, Peter.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
Yeah, again. And this time we talk about money. Last time we talked about entrepreneurship. And I would like to ask you a few questions. And I'm very happy that you are willing to be part of it and helping more people understand how to build wealth, how to manage their money. I think financial education is absolutely important, but unfortunately it's not taught in school. So here we are.
Absolutely. Financial literacy, financial understanding, financial knowledge is one of those things, interestingly, that our educational systems do not teach us. And that should actually bring up a question on its own as to why our standard educational systems don't talk about it. Maybe it's because they want us to become debt slaves, but I don't want to jump into that too early, but I'll throw it back at you, Yassi. It's good to be here.
Yeah. Well, and also, I start with this question, okay? Because it's like a self-made millionaire series. So when did you achieve your 1 million net worth?
26 years old.
Well, and how did you track your net worth all the time, or you just
Of
happened to
course.
find out?
when you're single and you're grinding and you're I guess you're single and you're like me at the time. So I'm married now, but at the time when you were single like me, hustling and grinding, I always had a personal goal of making $1 million in liquid assets, not $1 million in a mortgage plus a car plus some investments. I always wanted to see, and this is just me, but I always wanted to see $1 million in a bank account. $1 million in a liquid account that I could spend if I wanted to. And at 26 years old, I hit that. And I remember that feeling. I remember reading it. If I remember correctly, I think it was like $1,600,000 or something like that. I just crossed over. And I remember it was just one of the most amazing moments of my life, because at that point, not only had I made and achieved a personal goal, but underneath all of that is the true reality that I was financially free. So let me explain what that means, at least to me. What that meant is that I owed nobody nothing. I didn't have a mortgage payment. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't owe, massive amounts of student loans. I was completely free. All I had was an internet bill, a rent bill, because I was renting at the time, and I had my cell phone bill, something like that. And so it was a moment in life at 26 years old where I literally felt like I was the most free and unchained.
And where did you get this idea from that you want to accumulate 1 million?
Well, the thing is that I realized early on, I think this is an important thing for many people out there trying to build wealth, is that nobody remembers what you drove. That was something, what you drive. That was something that for some reason always came up in my mind, Yassi, is that no one will ever remember the many, many years that I drove a 1986 Chevy Celebrity junker piece of crap car. Like, I drove that thing forever. I lived in a small 10 by 12 room that I was renting from my friend. It was basically like a closet, and no one will ever remember, except moments that I talk about it here, but no one will ever remember those times where I lived in squalor. I lived in a small shack. I lived in a small room, and I drove a 1986 Chevy. Like, one of the things that constantly reminded me of the potential and future success that I could have is to not get bogged down on other people's perceptions of my wealth. One of the things I also learned early on is that the idea is to be wealthy or to be rich, not to look rich. And I grew up in a world where many of my colleagues and many of my friends wanted to look rich, but they weren't actually rich. They had debt all over the place. And so for me, I wanted to buck that trend. I wanted to make sure that I was actually wealthy or moving on a track to be wealthy and to be rich instead of just look rich. And so for me, remembering kind of the past and saying, no one really cares about what you drove or what you wore or what you lived in. It's about being wealthy, not looking wealthy. Make sense?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, do you remember at what age you have that realization?
Oh, this was easily before I hit my 20s, probably in the late 17 years old, 18, 19 years old, when I was starting my first corporate jobs, for my first corporate internship at a large Fortune 500 company, large Fortune 50 company, actually. It was one of those realizations that, hey, I mean, there was all this stress of like, oh, you got a job now, you can buy a Lexus, or, you got a job now and all your friends are buying these new homes. And you got a job now and, oh, you can afford more stuff. The fact of the matter is I really couldn't afford those things because I would have to go into debt to be able to buy them. And so for me, the whole idea of building wealth is so that I could not have chains, not have bondage, and not have a debt that I owe someone else. And one of the biggest things that I think it's important for everyone out there to think about, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit later, debt isn't a bad thing. Maybe it sounds like I'm saying that debt is a bad thing. And there are many people who are able to leverage debt really effectively. For example, in the real estate world, you have to leverage debt to be successful there. But for me, my mental model around debt is that it constrained optionality. That's the simple function that I had. The more debt I have, the more it constrains options. And so for me, I always want to have as many options as possible as an operator, as an entrepreneur. I want to have access to networks. I want to have access to people. And if debt does not enable me to have these access points or be able to create or build the wealth or meet the right people because of this debt, then I wanted to remove it. And so I always saw debt as a mechanism for constraining my growth rather than enhancing my growth.
And then start from age 17 till age of 26. How did you actually build up your wealth?
Well, I got lucky. In a lot of lucky breaks. But at the end of the day, I've been a perennial entrepreneur for the last 2 decades. I've built multiple startups, a couple to acquisition, and so to be able to get to my first 26 years old and my first million, I went through a small acquisition of my web development startup company at the time. And it was acquired by another regional company that needed web-based services, web development services. This was back in the early 2000s period. Of sorts. And so I just got lucky. I found a company who wanted to purchase a lot of the collateral as well as the assets of the code that I've written, so that they can leverage it for their clients. So it was really just an opportunity that came out of the blue, and people were like, "Hey, we can expand into Peter's area because he's got a large network of clients there." And they basically purchased me for my intellectual property as well as my network and book of business, essentially.
Okay, that's the earning part. And then on the spending part, I want to ask, what is your money philosophy? How do you treat your money?
Great question. When it comes to money, I look at it very simply. You cannot afford it if you cannot buy it twice. Now, in cash. Now, I know that doesn't work for a lot of people, but I think for me, in the way that I grew myself up when it comes to money and wealth, is that if I can't afford it in cash, like if I want to buy a $50,000 car, to be able to buy that car, I would have to at least be able to have $100,000 to afford that. And that was always a mechanism for me to be able to filter between two things. Do I need it or do I want it? And 99% of the time, I don't need it. I really wanted it. And that type of model of saying, hey, if you can't buy it twice over in cash, you can't really afford it. For me, that moved me towards the wanting section of my brain a lot more than the need section of my brain. And at the end of the day, I don't really need anything. I need water, food, shelter, some clothes, and hopefully some nice relationships. But other than that, everything else is just a want.
Wants, yeah.
Yep.
And when you say times two, are you thinking like a future value of this money, or
Current
why
value.
times two?
I would times two. Here's the thing. I've seen, and maybe you have, a lot of my, let's say, colleagues in university who, when they got their first jobs, they end up getting like BMWs. It's like, bro, your first job, you're making 47 grand a year. You know, you're making $50,000 a year. The car you just bought is $45,000 a year, and you're paying a monthly car payment of like $900 a month. Like, you really can't afford that. And so the whole idea of being able to purchase it or be able to afford it twice over, or 2x, for me was a great way to rein in my desires for my wants, and really realize that I just can't afford it right now. And frankly, it would put me back into a debt situation where I'd owe someone else, and that would constrain optionality, right? Especially as an operator, entrepreneur, I need liquid capital in case I need to invest in my business, or I need to scale, or I need to hire a new employee, or I need to buy new licenses, or I need to take a trip, right? This liquid cash, especially if you're bootstrapping, is absolutely essential for me to get to the next level, get to the next business opportunity, get the next break, build the next function or feature in an application that I'm building. But if I have all this personal debt, that filters and that modifies my decisions, because I don't have the money to be able to do what I want for my business. And so for me, being business oriented and business minded first always helped me to make sure that I didn't overspend in my personal life and mostly focus on building my own business.
Yeah, right. That's a very good way to look at it. Initially, I thought the times two is from, I don't know if it's from Warren Buffett or from someone. Like, imagine if you spend your
Might have
money
been.
today, yeah, but if you invest in ETF S&P 500, 10 years later, it doubles the money. So the future value of the money is double than today. But if you spend it, you will not have it.
You're absolutely right. And I probably leveraged some saying from Warren Buffett or Bill Gates and modified it to myself. So maybe I didn't give credit where credit's due. But yeah, a lot of the ideas that I have didn't come to me. They are probably inspirations of other people that I've heard of, money gurus or experts on money, for sure.
Okay. Now we talk about how you evaluate what is your wants and needs. And do you invest?
Yes, I do.
And what is your investment philosophy?
So I'm going to say something that might not resonate with everyone out there.
Maybe I know.
Okay. But in 2016, and I've actually talked about this on video before, but in 2016, I went to my investment advisor and I told him to pull out all of my investments, my Roth, my IRA, my mutual funds, my money market accounts, ETF. I told him to pull everything out, and I invested all of it into cryptocurrency and Bitcoin. And I remember my money marketing, my accountant at the time, my money manager, I remember him calling me and being like, because I sent him an email, I said, I want to liquidate everything. I remember him calling me and he was like, Peter, is there a problem? What happened? Did your business fail? Why do you need this money? Like, and he was like really nervous. And I told him, I said, I want to invest all of it in cryptocurrency, the future of money. And his literal answer to me, Yasi, was, what's Bitcoin? He was like, what are you talking about, man? What are you talking about? And I said, don't worry about it. I want to liquidate everything. So long story short, all of my investments are in cryptocurrency now, ever since 2016. So Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, some other altcoins like Algorand, HNT, Icon, ICX, as well as a little bit of Cardano. So I could name those off. But yeah, most all of my investments now are in cryptocurrency.
Yeah, for all the listeners out there, and let's see when this episode go live, how much will one Bitcoin worth?
Yeah, right. Well, right now it's above 30,000. So if you invested in 2019 or 2020, you are sitting very well right now in a great position.
But it's a very bold action. I don't think many people have this out there to take all your assets and put into Bitcoin. Maybe some, but not everything.
Well, even in 2016. So in 2016, Bitcoin was still around $1,000 or so. And so for me at the time, having been building applications in cryptocurrency and being a startup entrepreneur in the cryptocurrency world, for me, it made a lot of sense. And
Hmm.
I remember having one of my conversations with my money manager, my accountant, and I told him, I said, I can make more money in 1 week by guessing on an altcoin than I do in my money marketing account or my long-term Roth or my IRA. Like I can make 15% in a week a traditional account will give me 2% over the year. And so I told him, I said, I would rather risk certain sections of my investments on these speculative assets with some really high upside, some real high returns, than having it sit there and earning 0.02% over the period of a year. At least I have more engagement and I'm more personally responsible for my value and for my investments instead of having it on autopilot. And so for me, that was a big decision in life to say, I want to have more personal responsibility over my finances. Of course, there's more risk to that, and I have to do more diligence and more research, but the rewards were worth it. And as you could probably imagine, from 2016 to 2021, where we sit today, pretty much all of my investments in crypto are up. Actually, not pretty much. All of my investments in
Yeah.
crypto are up. And so we can look at it in 2020 hindsight and say, yeah, that was a great decision. Was it? I guess so. But at the end of the day, every individual is going to have to make their own decisions around their investments. They're the future of money for them. And for me, I think cryptocurrency will be the future of money in the future. And I'm going hard into it. And I'm
Mhm.
bullish. I'm bullish on crypto and Bitcoin for sure.
Yeah. And also, I have to warn the audience that anything we discuss here is not a financial advice. It's just
Yes.
purely personal opinions. You
And
do your own
speculative.
research. Yes. Okay. Then my last question is touching on family finance. How do you manage wealth as a family?
Great question. Wow, that's a real personal question. I think I'm really fortunate, Yasi, really, really fortunate. And the reason is because I married a woman who absolutely enjoys managing the household finances. Now, you won't find this in every marriage, and you won't find this certainly in every relationship, but I think I lucked out because I absolutely, if given the option, I would absolutely prefer that someone else manage my money for me. And so I have a wife who loves managing the household. She runs a very tight budget when it comes to the kids, to school, to organic foods, to eating out, to expenses on, cleaning the house and doing the yard. Like she's really, really good at managing all of that. And in terms of any tips, I don't know if I have any tips here, but if there's one individual within a relationship, especially since the context of this question is family, if
Mhm.
there's one individual in your family who loves or has a more enjoyment in managing finances, let them manage it and trust them to manage it. And that's what I've done over 11 plus years of marriage, and given it over to my wife and allow her to manage that and trust her that she's going to make the best decisions in that. And when it comes to any type of big purchases, family purchase, we come together and we discuss it. It's very simple. We come together, we discuss it. We say, hey, is this something that our kids need or our family needs? And then we make the decision there. But in TLDR, in a nutshell, man, if you're in a family and you have a partner who loves doing the finances more than you,
Mhm.
let them do it.
Good for you. My follow-up question, I'm just curious that, for example, if you make your crypto investment decision, and then on the other side you have family finance, are those separate, or they're still part of the whole family finance,
Great,
family asset?
great question. I think this actually it brings up something that is important. And especially when it comes to any investments, when it comes to investments, I've always lived by a very simple saying: do not play with your bread money. And what that means is your bread money is your money that you need to survive, right? To buy food, to shelter, clothes, right? These types of things. I think a lot of people, especially when they get into cryptocurrency, they see the gains, they see the opportunities, they see the rewards at the end of the rainbow, and they start playing with their bread money. The problem is when you start playing with your bread money, you start making more emotional decisions based on price fluctuation and price action. And so you always want to siphon off from bread money to investment money. And investment money should always be considered as complete loss. That you could wake up tomorrow and you've lost everything. That was part of the plan. And so when it comes to any type of investments, we have a very simple bifurcation. We have bread money that allows us to survive, and this stuff cannot be played with. And then we have extra capital that we're able to invest, take some risk, and be able to hopefully make some gains off of. And so that really is the tip to this question is have two pots of money, bread money and then investment money.
Right. I think it's quite important because once people start to learn about investment, they'll get so excited, there are lots of earning potentials, then they go all in and then they forgot about their bread money.
Yeah, and then you're eating ramen for the you're eating ramen for the next year because that's all you can.
Oh, the market fluctuates and then you cannot sleep because all your life savings is dependent on the market.
You sound like you're speaking from experience, Yassi.
A little bit experience from Bitcoin, but later on I just understand. I think you have to learn it from your own mistakes. I mean, the better way is to listen to podcasts like this one, but through personal experience, you really learn it the hard way.
You really do, and I think that's one of the tough things about these types of podcasts. It's not that you can't positively affect other people, but at the end of the day, everyone has to make their own mistakes. And what we're hoping is we can give advice to people to say, hey, there are better ways to make smaller mistakes and learn from those than make bigger mistakes. And so, yes, a common thread and a common theme that I see in a lot of investors that they get super excited, they start throwing in money that they can't afford, or they start playing with their bread money, and then they end up having a huge loss, and then they're eating ramen for the next 6 months, trying to make up for it. So don't be that guy.
I will not. And okay, now that brings to the end of this podcast session with you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your insights, your tips, sharing your personal experience. Nice to have you again.
Absolutely. It's great being on, Yassi.
Before letting you go, I have very exciting news to share with you. I am collaborating with financial Imagineer, Matthias Richter, to introduce you the Fast Track Money course. This 6-week online course is designed to help young professionals in their 20s to 40s to learn how to save more, earn more, and invest, using money as a tool to fulfill your dreams. We teach you the proven method that Matthias has been using himself in the last 20 years and achieved financial independence. If he can do it, so can you. Sign up for interest on fasttrack.life/money course to receive the latest course updates and promotions. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fast Track Podcast. Show me your support by liking this episode and sharing it with your friends. Join the Facebook group at Fast Track Podcast 1, or you can find us on Instagram, YouTube, and of course the homepage fasttrack.life. See you in the next episode.